Week 15 of this NFL regular season came and went for the Ravens, and Sarah, they took care of business exactly how you would have expected them to do against a New York Giants team that is lowly and going nowhere fast. And of course, now the first of three within this difficult stretch of 11 days, 3 games has been completed. Job not finished, though, as the late Kobe Bryant said. But as far as today is concerned, Baltimore takes care of business, improves to 9-5. Boat racing the New York Giants, Sarah, in East Rutherford, New Jersey. 35-14 was the final. And with that, welcome inside the vault for our post-game live stream. I'm Bobby Trossett, as always, joined alongside Sarah Ellison and partner. I mean, just what the doctor ordered for a team that, quite frankly, has a significant stretch of games coming up here over like I mentioned, the next 11 days. And the division is very much still in the conversation here.
Yeah, Bobby, we knew once Lamar was on the podium from the Eagles game, we all said, we feel sorry for the Giants because this anger, him getting cussed out by his mom, all of that came right back squarely in the Giants' face. He was completely unhappy. He couldn't wait until the bye week was over. And we saw it. We saw how ticked off he was, and it was exactly what it was supposed to be. So my 3 biggest takeaways that I'll name quickly and we'll go deeper into it was 1, the Ravens did what they were supposed to do against an inferior opponent that is now 2-12. My second takeaway is that the formula is back where Lamar Jackson is running more, doesn't have to run a ton, but ran enough to where it opened up the entire offense. And yes, it was against the Giants, so it made it a little bit easier. But by threatening with your legs, it opened up and everybody got to eat because of it. And my third big takeaway is even with the bye, there's still some issues with penalties. They're still a bit sloppy, which is okay against an inferior opponent. But a greater opponent, an elite opponent, a playoff opponent will take advantage.
Yeah, no question. Lamar, his 6th career game with a Jackson 5. That's 5 touchdown passes. That's tied for 4th most in NFL history. The defense takes another step. Again, it is the Giants. They went with 2 quarterbacks, by the way, after Tommy DeVito left the game in concussion protocol. They turned to journeyman Tim Boyle for the second half. So clearly, it was clear, Sarah, right out of the gate that this was going to be a team that struggles to move the ball. This was going to be a team that struggles to put up points. That's what they were statistically, eye test, whatever you want to call it, coming in. And that's what they were today. And that's probably why John Harbaugh decided to, in that opening quarter, punt away at midfield from 4th and 1. Trust your defense, understand what and
understand who the opponent is.
Understand the film that you've watched leading in and trust your eyes. He did exactly that, and that became a total non-story. We had it in our notes thinking that maybe we would revisit it, especially after Lamar turns the ball over in the opening possession, right when Justice Hill goes for 59 yards off the rip from a return standpoint. You set it up to Zay for a nice little dump on the left-hand side of the field, and then Lamar fumbles it, and you're thinking to yourself, well, if there's a formula for the Giants to stay in this game, that this is exactly it. But that again, that's the first and last time it'll be brought up, I'm sure, throughout this live stream. As you take a look at the playoff picture as things currently stand, and of course, behind me and behind my setup here, a big one between Buffalo and Detroit is currently being played. The Bills are up early on the Lions 7-0, but the one that we're all going to be watching closely just because of the implications that it has on the division is Philadelphia-Pittsburgh. Because if the Eagles take care of business, Sarah, today and beat the Steelers, there's only one game that separates Baltimore and Pittsburgh, and we know that round 2 of the rivalry is coming up on Saturday. It's a short week for the Ravens, but currently they still sit at that 5th seed spot, which would be a road playoff game in Houston, who they'll see in under 10 days from now, or 10 days exactly from now, in Houston on Christmas Day.
It's not, you can't set it up any better. The 2 teams that are right ahead of you face next. You want to beat the Steelers to get back into the AFC North champion position. It's not guaranteed, even if Steelers lose today and all of that. There more needs to go on, but you can't ask for better. You want to jump up in the seedings. The 2 teams that are right ahead of you are the 2 teams that you see next. But Bobby, so I think that we appropriately framed this that this game was against the Giants, obviously. So to me, you don't want to overinflate the win and you don't want to underinflate the win. You don't want to overinflate it and get a big head and be like, woohoo, everything's fine again. They're 2-12. At the same time, the Ravens have played down to lesser opponents. They've lost to lesser opponents, including the Raiders and the Browns. And of course, the Browns are a division opponent, but still they've played down. So you want to appreciate it. Don't get a big head, but appreciate it. To me, what I mostly appreciate is what I said at the top, is this formula on offense. It was a complete clinic in why Lamar Jackson should use his legs more, as his mom said, and at the video that we played earlier this week, I think maybe you were still out of town, Cam Newton said, like, nobody has the legs that you have. Nobody has it. And so he uses it, and it opens up the entire offense. I put up some stats when I wrote this at halftime. He was off. I won't read them off. We'll read off his post-game stats. But in addition to running, by the way, this is what I was trying to explain to people. People are like, no, we don't need a hero ball. We don't need to put Lamar at risk. No. Did you see how easy it was for him? He was pulling up his pants in third gear. Doesn't even need to get into fourth or fifth gear. Pulling up his pants, making the opponents miss. Hero ball is trying to win it in one play, win the whole game in one play. That can happen through the air too. No, it looks so easy. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait, do I guard Lamar or do I guard Henry? Because all of a sudden Lamar's keeping it more on those options. As I said, we saw 2 weeks ago with Saquon and I almost said Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts. This is it. And yes, it's against the Giants, but use this formula. It's going to be better for everybody. And this is the final result. All you had to do was rush 6 times for 65 yards and look at everything else falling into place. Almost 300 passing yards. More touchdown passes than incompletions. What? And this is also why, Bobby, I say, why do you want to just give the MVP over to Josh Allen? That's like saying, hey, this game is tight in the third quarter. Bills are up by maybe a touchdown. You don't say, oh, give it to the Bills as we go into the fourth quarter. This is the fourth quarter of the season. And Lamar comes out playing like an MVP again. And we all, again, I'm going to say it a million times. I know it's against the Giants, but this thing isn't over yet.
No. It almost feels as if the race is actually about to be reset.
Yeah.
Like, let's go back to the start line. And over the next month, let's see how this thing plays out. And it's almost as if also that Josh saw Lamar's performance before this game that's currently being played took place, because they are off to a hot start in Detroit. Buffalo's up 14-0. So throughout the stream, of course, we'll keep you updated on that. And of course, the game that really matters for the division, that is Pittsburgh at Philadelphia. Steelers down early in the first, 3-0 thus far. But yeah, an awfully clean stat line, as you just alluded to. 21 of 25 through the air, 290 passing yards, 5 passing touchdowns, 65 rushing yards. And again, as I mentioned off the top, that is his 6th career game with 5 passing touchdowns. You also mentioned where somehow he's pulling up his trousers while also running at just half speed, yet he's carving up the Giants defense. He spoke about this specific play that the CBS cameras caught him literally pulling up his pants while running, Sarah.
Pants? All
right, so look. They was asking me that. So I'm like, I felt like wind was touching my butt, you know, so I was trying to keep my tights up for real. I feel like the tights just like got a little loose or something. I don't know. So I was like just trying to keep my pants up, but that's all it was. It was too cold out there. Like,
might end it on that.
Probably.
They're like, all right, 2 more questions. And then that was the first of the 2. And they're like, okay, never mind. Let's end on that. He wanted to avoid the fate that Derrick Henry had a couple weeks ago, Bobby. We all remember that.
Oh, that is good. Yeah, exactly. That was good right there. Playful Lamar at his best. And at the same time, you know, there were parts to that press conference that were also like, hey, we're not only are we already in Steelers mode, but I was ticked off because of the fumble. You know, like he mentioned that he was ticked off. The opening fumble gives the Giants life to start. Again, there was very little life to begin with, so it really was a non-factor in the game. But that was pretty much the only knock on Lamar's performance. And you see some other numbers here again, those 6 games with 5+ passing touchdowns, since 2019. That is best league-wide. Patrick Mahomes, the second best with 4. And so far this year, again, Lamar, I should say, I was actually looking at the graphic here that was just what you referenced earlier on, more touchdowns than incompletions. One of the many things that was notable from Lamar's performance. And CBS also took a look at where this season falls with comparison to past MVP seasons of his. Of course, the initial one in 2019, the most recent one in 2023, and where he currently sits entering week 16. And yeah, he's on pace and already outpacing his MVP past selves, Sarah.
He's killing him.
Yeah.
He's killing him. Now in 2019, he had more rush yards. I don't know where he's got 743 right now through
that'll be tough to hit 1208. He hit 1208 in 2019 if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
1208's nasty, but he could probably have, let's see, if it was 1208, that's about 48 to 4900 total yards in 2019. And right now 358 with 7, we're at 42ish. I mean, he could get more total yards for sure. Yeah. But yeah, in terms of passing yards, he's blowing it out of the water. In terms of touchdowns, he's already got 34. The 3 interceptions, all 3 of which touching his weapon's hands. Plus, he's got 3 more rushing. 3 more rushing. He's 2 touchdown passes away from tying a career high, and he's got 3 more games to do it.
Yeah,
He's blowing out. The difference between this year and especially last year, I'm trying to remember who the opponents were or who was in the MVP race in 2019, but I feel like Lamar ran away with it from early on. But last year, the difference, even though he's outpacing last year, is there was no other player that really came on last year. And this year, you've got both Josh Allen and you've got Saquon Barkley. So he's got better competition this year, but he's out-competing himself this year. It's insane.
Just to be thorough, too, it's 1,206 from 2019. So I was off by 2 yards there. But yeah, point is, I always remember that one because it's the single season record that Mike Vick previously held. That still stands as, I believe that still stands as an all-time record. Did Justin Fields get close to it recently? He may have gotten really close to it within the last couple of years.
Close to it, but he was like a good 100, 150 off.
Okay. Well, point being, at the time, it was it was a record-setting rushing yard performance by a quarterback that eclipsed previous history in terms of single season. Mm-hmm. So it just kind of sticks in your mind a little bit. And as Ryan Mink also noted, he did a few other things that no other quarterback in NFL history had ever done today. He hit 80% completion percentage, 250 passing yards, 5 passing touchdowns that we've mentioned a couple times now, a clean game, no picks aside from the fumble, and 50 rushing yards on top of that. So it's about as perfect as it gets without that perfect passer rating that he's done so often throughout his career as well.
Absolutely. And then there's more, Bobby. There's more. How about when he's throwing 10 yards or more? He was 4 of 5, 93 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, again, 0 interceptions. But on this one, he did have a perfect passer rating, 158.3 on throws of 10 yards or more. And then this one, gosh dang it, I'm going to celebrate it, even though this barely made a peep on Twitter. This is the stuff that ticks me off that I pointed out when we were listening to Cam Newton. Why don't we celebrate this more? I'm telling you, people have been successfully shamed into believing it's not good for a quarterback to run. Lamar Jackson is now over 6,000 career rushing yards. There are only 2 people in the history, the entire history of the NFL. 2 people have surpassed that milestone. That's Lamar and Michael Vick. Yep. Lamar's, I think, around 100. He might be less than 100 now of just beating Michael Vick outright in career rushing yards. Yep. This is a massive milestone that nobody even is like saying boo about. Are you kidding me? And then how about this? How about this as he's running? Bobby, like he threw Greg Stroman Jr., cornerback for the Giants, out of the TV screen. This is how it started. I have it in 4 gorgeous still shots. look, they're locking up. Looks like a normal play. Okay, he's probably going to push Lamar out of bounds, kind of like what you expect. Oh, but wait a minute. Lamar's starting to get together a little form of a stiff arm, a little bit Derrick Henry-esque. Then all of a sudden, Strowman gets pushed backwards, and then we can't even see him. You get to see his leg as he's falling out of the TV screen. And this is the tone that Lamar set after he was ticked off at his own fumble and was like, nah, I'm mad. And I could just hear him being like, I could just imagine him hearing his mom cussing him out. Take the lanes. And he just heard all that cussing and transferred it through his stiff arm into Strowman here. And like that running, whether you do it a lot, again, he made it look so easy, Bobby. He made it look so easy. That running has a beautiful running day, and then it set up the passing game so beautifully to the point where he hit 8 different targets today, Bobby. 8. And 4 different targets in touchdown passes, spreading the wealth. It was one of those days for Lamar Jackson.
Well, the man who led the way, too, as the beneficiary was Rashad Bateman for the first time in his career. He had a multi-touchdown catch performance kind of day. 3 receptions for 80 yards, 2 touchdowns, a long of 49, 5 targets. This right here was the 49-yard hookup that I just referenced. As Jeff noted, Bateman at the time had 6 touchdowns. He had 4 total over his first 3 NFL seasons. He now has 7 this year because this, again, was the first of 2. And Sarah, there was a little bit of English on the back end of this play as well. Not only was it a filthy route where he left his guy in the dust, but then he catches it, and the yards after the catch was on full display. A little bit of shake and bake as he finds his way into the end zone. I'm genuinely happy for number 7. He is having a career year. He's proving the Ravens right. He's proving Eric DeCosta right. And obviously on a day where you didn't even need Zay. I mean, Zay still goes 6 receptions for 53 yards on 7 targets. But this was the Rashad Bateman day. And this was the Lamar day. And I think a lot of us have been dreaming of those kinds of days since they used a first-round pick on him several years ago. And maybe, just maybe, it'll be a late-blooming kind of player that Rashad Bateman is evolving into.
So he finished, this was his first time that he had a multi-touchdown game of his career. He now has 7 on the season, 1 behind Mark Andrews, meaning 7 touchdowns. So he's got 7 touchdowns on the season, 1 behind Mark Andrews. Bateman finished with 80 yards and the 2 touchdowns. So what is he up to now on the season? I think the stats I'm looking at was before this game. So he's over 600 yards. Yeah, over 600 yards. A good, probably like 640 with 7 touchdowns. It's beautiful. It's exactly the ceiling I thought he could have when he was re-signed. Yeah. Like I put him at a ceiling of 850. He's certainly on pace for that. And Bobby, to your point, just to like dig into the 2 different touchdown passes, the first one, I'm sure everyone has seen it, or if you haven't, go back and watch it. We can't do it here for copyright reasons. But the stutter step he put on the defender completely turned the defender around and had no clue where Bateman was. None. Lost completely. And what's so funny is it wasn't like a stutter step that you would think of with Zay Flowers, where it's just like you see this jitterbug and it's like you can see how hard he's like like it's so smooth. It's so smooth with Bateman. And then that second touchdown catch, that one, when I was watching it live, Bobby, in real time, to me, it was so gorgeous from the pass and the spin on the ball to the way Bateman split 2 defenders and kind of leaped in the air to get it, and the way he grabbed it. The real-time regular speed looked like slow motion to me. That's how gorgeous the entire play was from start to finish, and that's how easy he and Lamar made it look. This chemistry that they finally got going on is what we've been hoping for. It's what we've been waiting for. It was like when he was drafted, Rashad Bateman is that X receiver that the Ravens have been waiting for. The taller guy, the guy can go outside, the guy that can stretch the field. And it's like, oh, he's here. And it feels so good.
Yeah, and a lot of the fan base refers to him as big play bait, right? Because of this emergence, and this statistic certainly reflects that nickname. He has 3 receiving touchdowns this season of 40+ yards. 3 of 40+. The only player with more is, of course, Jamar Chase, and the Ravens have a lot to do with that statistic, but in terms of it from a defensive standpoint. But I just think that we're watching a player who's evolving. We're watching a player who's healthy. Don't forget, he was on the injury report going into the bye, and that knee was something that popped up, and he was pretty much a full participant all week long going into this weekend. And that's an afterthought after this. I mean, he's running silky smooth routes. That second touchdown that you referenced was just a dime dropped in there into the bucket by Lamar, but even better hands from Bateman. He's got great footwork. And, look, there's a lot of areas, and we're going to get to them later on in the show, that this team has to shore up and tighten up over the next few weeks if they want to make a deep run. But it just seems as if there's a lot that's rounding out into form right now at the right time for them. And I think Rashad's one of those factors that's playing his best football at the right time. Should we get to some super chats?
Absolutely.
Let's see. Captain Hard writes, and we're going to get here, don't you worry. Taz effing, meaning Tez effing Walker. MV3 is back in the conversation if we win out. Charisma writes, Lamar took his anger out on number 30.
Indeed.
Dev James 25 says MVP goes to Mama Jackson, a.k.a. Felicia Jones. Lamar took the running lanes, and Monken mixed design quarterback runs with Henry to help the offensive line. Debonair Radio says, besides the defensive penalties, today was solid. And that's kind of what I was referencing. We'll definitely going to get to those and break them down. A nice get-right game, but give me the same energy next week versus a much more physical Pittsburgh defense. And, of course, that's what's coming up. Quick little score update for you in real time. Philadelphia has pulled ahead of Pittsburgh early in the first quarter. I should say early in the game, late in the first quarter, 10-3 now. The Eagles lead the Steelers. So, again, if the Steelers fall to Philadelphia today, just one game separates Baltimore and Pittsburgh for the AFC North, with, of course, this game looming on a short week. And it's a Saturday kickoff, and this time it'll be played in Baltimore. Let's see. What else do we need to discuss? This guy, number 89, who now stands alone. Mark Andrews passed the great Jamal Lewis, former Ravens running back, for most touchdowns scored in team franchise history. That's 48. Count them. Mark is back, Sarah. He's playing great football. And Lamar said as much in the postgame, and he didn't forget either that he saw some noise online this offseason about folks thinking that he should be traded, and you transcribed it right here.
He said, man, like I said, I got a guy with me. That's a guy right there, one of the GOATs to play football ever. He went on to talk about how good it's felt to come into the league with him together. They were both drafted in 2018, Lamar in the first round, Mark in the third round. And he says every year they're trying to get better together, and he feels like that's happening. He said last year there was a dip because of the injury. He goes, quote, he got injured last year, came back, and people were talking about we need to trade Mark. I didn't forget that, and I know he didn't forget that. And here he is. And listen, I mean, it really is. I mean, it's just such a case of like a short-sighted view. Such a short-sighted view. This duo right here, all those touchdown passes that Mark Andrews has caught, I don't know about all of them because Lamar's been hurt a couple times, but the vast majority of those catches, those touchdown catches in the end zone that set a franchise record, the vast majority coming from his quarterback that he came here with. You don't play around with that kind of chemistry. You don't throw that chemistry out the window, especially when half of it is coming off of an injury and half of it had a car accident, right? And like you just like people just throw that away so quickly. And for what? Like really, this right here is going to be a historic Ravens duo.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking back on it, talking about it. He's the next guy in terms of touchdowns that every next Raven that comes along is going to be looking at his record and be like, can I beat Mark Andrews? This duo right here, do not throw it away like it's a piece of garbage.
Right? Like Joe and Todd. All right? Joe Flacco and Todd Heap. These guys are going to be in a different category.
Or Joe and Pitta.
Or Joe and Dennis.
Had the transition between those guys. Yeah.
Or Joe and Dennis. Okay, yeah, that's right. Right. And man, and Dennis is one of those guys that you ask yourself, what if, right? What if that injury didn't end his career sooner? But that's neither here nor there. If you're looking for reasons why Mark is rounded out into form and you're not trusting your eyes, just go look at the statistics. Mark has scored at least one touchdown in 8 of the past 9 games, Sarah. So again, another player who's peaking at the right time here and has been playing really good football for weeks on end. A modest yet historic stat line for him. 2 receptions for 24 yards and a touchdown. He was targeted just 2 times, but again, now stands alone, the all-time leader in touchdowns in franchise history. And there have been a decent amount of players productively to come through this organization. Devontae Walker, many people are chatting about him in the live chat. Sarah, he was at times this year, he's been inactive. Matter of fact, I heard the CBS statistic. They had it at 8 inactives for Devontae Walker. He was the 4th round pick that they took a flyer on out of North Carolina. Remember, he had the eligibility issue this time last year, not specifically this time, the first half of his final college football year last season at UNC. And then they finally figured out the eligibility. He became eligible and rocked it down the stretch. The Ravens select him in the 4th round. He's not really playing a role for them. Comes in today, and a beautiful toe-tapping catch goes down as not only his first catch, but his first NFL touchdown.
And by the way, Bobby, to prolong your point or to drive it home even more, underscore is the word I'm looking for to underscore your point. He had been in on 6 offensive snaps total for the whole season coming into this.
There you go.
And one of them was in victory formation. So it wasn't even like one that he could do. So Lamar Jackson asked about that touchdown catch. He said, this week we had that play drawn up from what they've been showing on defense. We caught them in that look, and Tez did the rest. All I had to do was deliver the strike. He did the toe drag at the end. So he's Tez toe tap from now on. I want to bring up the super chat. I know we're not going through all of them right now, but Isaiah says to me, or to both of us, but has a question for me. Good to see you both. Sarah, do you remember me asking about Tez? I hope to see him more. Isaiah, I do remember you asking, and I remember my answer, which I kind of scoffed at it and said, no, I don't think we'll see Tez very much. So I'm happy for Tez. I'm happy for you. That being said, I still don't know that we're going to see a ton of Tez. I feel like as Lamar said it in that quote right there, but he also said it in his very first answer. He said that the Giants had been showing stuff on tape that made them believe that they could hit deep passes. And so that's what he did with Rashad Bateman. And then that's what they did with Tez. And so I feel like they kind of brought Tez in where they're feeling comfortable because they had a big lead. And they're like, you know what? Let's get this guy in. They're showing vulnerabilities down deep. We have a good lead. Let's give him a chance. So that being said, Tez did an amazing job with it. He got his toes in. If he hadn't, that would have been super deflating and disappointing. So to me, he's earned more chances. I just don't know that it's going to be a ton of more chances. So, but I'm happy for him. And every time you do something good like that, that just earns you another opportunity, and he's got to come up big again.
Yeah, and if it ends up being it, then hey, a great start. And you made the most of your opportunity, and let's see how things shake out from here on out. You know he's going to be involved in special teams. He had a fantastic shoestring tackle in special teams coverage today. So look out for 81. That's a body that's making an impact out there on teams. Let's get to a couple more super chats as well. Rave Kingdom writes, hello, everyone. Ben Cleveland. I'll take the win. He's got to make sure that he gets Ben out there.
Ben Cleveland was out there. He was at center in garbage time, but he was out there.
Ben got a little bit of run, Rave. We know you were pumping your fist somewhere. Chef Trez writes, it was a great game where we kept control. However, the run blocking on Lamar runs were bad. Too many guys taking plays off when the quarterback is making a play. You know what's really strange? On that fumble in the opening possession, what was Zay doing?
I don't know.
I don't think Zay. I think Zay maybe either was lost in the sauce or thought that it was going to a completely different side of the field because he didn't even know Lamar was behind him.
He didn't. He was like standing there, like in this like stance, and like just standing there. Then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, they're coming up behind me, and then he like takes a step and does nothing, and he starts going like, what? Like you can tell that he's like, I was lost, and then he looks back again, and Lamar had fumbled it. So
yeah,
and again, this is the sloppy stuff though that they have to clean up because you open that way against the Steelers. You open that way against the Eagles. You open that way against the Chiefs. You open that way against the Bills, and they will cut your throat and make you pay. So, yeah, you can get away with that against the Giants. And Lamar knows, I mean, he was tapping himself, and the guy, he made a good play. He swiped it out. And so Lamar knows. I'm glad he knows, and I'm glad he was ticked off. By the way, at one point, they were asking him in the press conference, hey, did you feel great about, having 5 touchdowns and only 4 incompletions? And he's like, no, I was hot because of that fumble. Like I was ticked off about that. So he downplayed his Jackson 5. And I'm glad though, you got to focus on the things that you can get better at so that you prevent it from happening again. And by the way, so to the Super Chat's point, I got to give it up just on this play. And listen, it's against an inferior defensive line, but on the pulling up, no. Was it the pulling the pants up play? Or was it when he threw it down to Bateman? I can't remember. But Fa'alele got a nice block. When Lamar first was scrambling to the left and then he went back to the right, Fa'alele was there and had a nice block there. So just want to give it up to him because I go after him. I feel like correctly, but wanted to give it up there.
I was actually going to mention a different player that I feel like is always working his way downfield when Lamar's in scramble mode, and that's Tyler Linderbaum, who just consistently shows off his versatility, his mobility, has his athleticism, always a willing blocker, always willing to get down into the second, third levels, so on and so forth when Lamar's doing his thing. And I think that's what makes him unique at center for the Ravens. So any other offensive notes that we need to discuss?
Jeff Trez making a point here in chat when he's right. If Derrick Henry blocked his guy, Lamar could have hit the open run lane on that play. That's true.
Yeah,
I remember the guy getting off of Henry's block.
Didn't necessarily come easy today for Derrick. He had 14 carries for 67 yards. That's an average of 4.8 per carry. No touchdowns and a long of 13. Now that there were, I think in the third quarter, they were just moving so effortlessly with him. But they didn't ask a ton of him today. Clearly they didn't need him. The Giants just, they bent. They bent early and they bent often and they bent late. And now I would think because of the flyover, Sarah, did you see the videos that went viral pregame? He literally has, John Mara, owner of the Giants, has his own fan base paying probably thousands of dollars to literally pay for flyover banners to go across the stadium that say, fire everybody, Mr. Mara. Like stuff like that, like literally saying, we're not going to stop flying these over your stadium until you fire everybody. So I don't know if that's going to be a factor in his decision-making, but clearly Brian Dable and GM Joe Shane, that the seats have to be very, very warm if they're not already in the Meadowlands.
A couple more points on offense. I want to give love to Justice Hill. He, in the passing game, in the screen passing game, was obviously sensational. He actually was the second leading receiver in terms of yards in this game for the Ravens. So he had 5 catches for 61 yards in the touchdown. Just on those screen plays, he's so deadly. And so Ravens sometimes have to figure out what they want to do with him because sometimes he's so great in pass protection when the blitz is coming that he has to stay in and block is sometimes is needed. But then other times, if you don't use that and you have him as a bailout in the screen, that's pretty nice too. I mean, he was wide open. The touchdown pass was a little low. He showed great hands on it and then had a wide open spot. But in addition to what he did in the passing game, he opened up the entire game with a phenomenal kickoff return that was spoiled by that fumble. But he had himself a day. His acceleration, I feel like, is underrated. Sometimes I feel like I blink and he's 10 yards up the field. Like his acceleration is top notch. So I wanted to give a shout out to him, and I have one other shout out unless you have something to say on Justice.
I just think he's a decisive cutter. His cutting ability is decisive. It's silky. It's quick. And then, like you said, the acceleration, the burst has always been there. And this is post-injury. Remember, he tore his Achilles not all that long ago. So, as much as we want to talk, and we will at the end probably about Keaton Mitchell being a healthy scratch again, that was obviously for Rasheen Ali, and RB3 will mostly be a special teamer for you. Now, Rasheen got a little bit of run there at the end in garbage time. But Justice is clearly, far and away, their RB2. There's a reason why they extended him. There's a reason why they continue to use him in the screen game. And now, to your point, just as he always has, whether it's a gunner or like today, he is an impactful return specialist and a special teamer in general.
Okay, you also brought up and said we weren't going to talk about it too much, but I do want to talk about it, if you don't mind, the John Harbaugh, because I think the John Harbaugh decision on 4th and 1 to not go for it. I think based off of your tweets, we're on the same page that there's nothing to criticize here, right?
No.
Are we on the same page?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, yeah, because to me, again, you play the opponent. Now, John Harbaugh, according to the broadcast, it was the first time this year that the Ravens didn't go for it on 4th and 1. Like
Same with the Giants. They haven't done it either.
Where they haven't gone on 4th and 1?
Both teams coming into the game. What a wild CBS statistic. Both teams had never punted on 4th and 1 all season long.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. Well, and because I think people are becoming more analytics driven and 4th and 1 from they were around the 50. We've seen John Harbaugh go for it deep in the Ravens zone territory and go for it on 4th and 1. And it's much scarier. So it would almost felt automatic that he would do it. But literally, people were still criticizing it even after they saw the results. Bobby, when you punt the ball, what you are hoping to ensue is exactly what happened.
Oh, yeah.
You're thinking to yourself, listen, we could go for it. We could probably get it, but there's a chance we don't. Any number of things could happen. This Giants team, unless we have a bunch of penalties, is not gonna go the distance. So he's thinking to himself, at the time when the Giants have 0 points, it's no, if we give it to him at the 50, they could at least go far enough to get a field goal. And I don't even want to give him any points, So I'm going to go ahead and pin him back and count on the defense to do a 3 and out. And that's exactly what happened. And then we're going to get favorable field position, which is probably exactly where we would be if we had gone for it on 4th and 1, which is exactly what happened, but better because Desmond King returned it to the 32. And a few plays later, the Ravens are in the end zone.
Yep.
He knew the opponent, he knew the situation, and he made the correct call. Even if he had gone for it, I bet they would have gotten it and maybe they would have scored anyway. So the point being is either decision probably would have worked out well. And so it's funny, Bobby, because a lot of people will accuse me or you or us, certainly me, of being a Harbaugh defender. And I feel like we do a pretty good job of criticizing him when it's time. I personally think that. But people will try to be like, oh, you just defend him all the time. No. I feel like that's gaslighting me. When you are still complaining in this situation and criticizing John, fire him, he's terrible, when it played out exactly how he wanted it to play out, exactly this, then it's you who's pushing a narrative and not me. I'm trying to take it play by play, decision by decision. But when you see that the Ravens pin them in their own territory, get a 3 and out, return it to a better field position and score, and you're still criticizing him, then it's you that's trying to push a narrative, not me. Don't try to turn the tables. That's you trying to gaslight me, and I'm just going off of the facts. He made the right decision.
Well, anybody pushing back, that was a head scratcher for me, and I saw a lot of it online mid-game. I don't know if it was just frustrations boiling over from an opening possession turnover, but I was really scratching my head. Come on, this clearly they had studied. You didn't even need to study to know that was the right decision, and he was proven right. And it really was a non-factor in the game, like I referenced earlier on, but worthy of a conversation. Ready to chat about defense?
Yeah, let's do it.
Now, again, the underscore, to use your term there from earlier on, is that, or the I guess the context needed here is that, yes, this is a Giants offense that ranks dead last in scoring. They're dead last in red zone efficiency. They don't get to the red zone. That's the problem, as we covered in our preview episode with our guest, Paul Schwartz, who was hilarious, by the way. And today you had multiple quarterbacks suiting up as well. So did you notice that when they went from DeVito to Boyle, their operation was just not polished? Because
Well,
Quarterbacks have different tendencies.
Well, you can't even ask. What is he, the fourth string?
Maybe. I don't even think
He's
he was
like
on the team last
I
week.
think he's either like third or fourth, something like that. So yeah, no, he's not going to be polished.
He wasn't on the team last week, but what I mean by that, though, is like tendency-wise, the timing is different, obviously, between quarterbacks. So you could tell they were getting like neutral zone infractions and jumping early when they went from DeVito to Boyle. So long story short, clearly points were going to come at a premium for the Giants today, and they didn't get a whole lot of them. Final score, of course, was 35-14. And Sarah, for a third consecutive game, don't look now, this is a Ravens defense that has held its opponent to under 300 yards, 236 to be exact. Today, the Giants were 2 for 12 on third down. Clearly the formula was clear. Aside from Malik Neighbors, they don't have a lot of high impact guys. They were banged up and down the offensive line, as Paul told us. They had a laundry list, 2021-esque Ravens injury report leading into the game. And so, you for a talent like Malik Neighbors, you almost like feel sorry for the guy because he really is a dog. Just ask Nate Wiggins about that matchup, which we'll get to in just a bit. But overall, solid performance from the defense, but we have to talk about the penalties.
We do have to talk about the penalties, but before we get there, Paul, who you've been referencing, said this was going to be like the first team ever that gets 2 bye weeks in a row, making a joke that like getting an actual bye week and then going against the Giants is equivalent to 2 bye weeks. And I felt like the defense came out looking refreshed. Obviously, I mean, this is like, we haven't seen a pose like this, right? The Ravens Instagram account or Twitter account, all their accounts put out this like victory picture of the defense. And it feels like we haven't had one of these since maybe week 4 against the Bills. We had so many last year as the defense was number 1 in so many categories. And so it's nice to have this back. In this game, we saw, I mean, Roquan was nasty this game. It just feels like we're getting closer and closer to the Roquan that we're used to. And part of that, Bobby, you mentioned, you mentioned before the show started to me, you were like, was Trenton Simpson ever out there? And I was like, oh, I thought he was. And like, we were looking into it. If maybe he was out there in the second half when there was like, they were pulling their starters and stuff. Did anybody see Trenton Simpson in the first half? We may have to wait to get the snap count, but I don't know.
He definitely wasn't in there in the first quarter. I think it may have been the entire first half. The rotation included Malik and Chris, meaning Malik Harrison and Chris Board. And so when you look at some of the adjustments that have been made in recent weeks, this is where you can start to have a conversation about coaching. They've made some key adjustments, whether it was Ardarius and Kyle becoming the starting back-end safeties, benching Marcus, cutting Eddie, right? That's a big deal. That's been multiple weeks now and highly impactful. It looks like from a special teams perspective, Sarah, they have went with Desmond King over Tylen. We know Tylen really struggled in that Philadelphia game. That paid some early dividends and a nice return from Desmond at one point today as a punt returner. And now maybe, just maybe, an early glimpse of what could be the future, at least in the short term, of what the Ravens could be doing in the middle part of the field that hopefully frees up and gives Roquan a little bit more reliability.
Well, and Jeff Zrebiec had made the point when he was on Cole Jackson's show, Road Raiders on YouTube. Great show. Go check Cole out. But Jeff had made the point that like maybe the Ravens had left Roquan Smith out to dry a little bit by putting Simpson in there and maybe just hoping that he could bring Simpson up. And, count me as one that was wrong. I thought Simpson was going to be able to come in and be ready and slowly just get better. Kind of in the way I kind of expected a Simpson year, the way Nate Wiggins is going, where like you'd see some rookie-like mistakes, even though it was his second year, some rookie-like mistakes early, but then I figured he'd get better and better and better, and that just hasn't happened. And so if indeed Trenton Simpson was taken out of that rotation, that's an interesting note. Yeah. And it may help explain why we're seeing Roquan playing like Roquan, because he's next to guys who know where they're supposed to be. Maybe they don't have the athletic talent or ceiling that Simpson can eventually get to, but now we're December football. December football, it's not about potential. It's not about developing in December. It's about finding the formula that works. And so it was nice to see Roquan. And then they even in this game, as Dev Panchwa pointed out, that Hamilton was used closer to the line. But I don't know that we should get used to that. The Giants didn't have a ton of downfield threats. It was Malik Neighbors, and that's it. And then Michael Pierce being back. Yeah. I don't understand that dude. That dude is massive, and he has a Santa Claus belly. It might be bigger than Santa Claus's belly. So I always get a kick out of it when he breaks free from his offensive lineman and starts running down quarterbacks. And for how big that dude is and how much weight he's carrying, he can move. It's really impressive, but I was so happy to see him back. I felt that like the defensive line in general looked good. And the Giants, when they were just trying to get a yard on 4th and 1, couldn't get it against this defensive line.
He's also shown resilience time and time again, Mike. He comes back from the injury that you were alluding to. He just came back from a month-plus long stint on IR when he was out in Minnesota. I'm pretty sure he had a season-ending injury. Again, this is his second stint back with Baltimore. He's a run stuffer specialist. He clogs up space in the middle, and he's going to be a key part of their efforts over the next month plus as they make their run when it comes to stopping the run and bringing that interior push. And I think another guy who's his running mate that does a lot of that is Travis Jones. And you get the sense that he is really just, you talk about resilience. You saw the beat reporters today that made the trip to Meadowlands all say that he was limping off. Oh, wait a second. Yeah, he limped off, but then he ended the game as if he didn't look 100%, but he still played. Travis Jones, Sarah, I think is a dude that just embodies a certain level of toughness and fortitude that gives the Ravens chances to bring interior pressure, stop the run, and make it heavily physical war in the trenches.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's between Travis and Michael and Nnamdi. That's, as long as they're healthy, that's a nice combination. And I hope that they took out Travis sooner than later. Sure. If he was limping, it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it in a game like this. Meanwhile, Ardarius Washington, who, my goodness, didn't even travel with the team on Saturday due to personal reasons. Usually when you aren't going for personal reasons, it's something big like a baby being born or a funeral. I mean, something massive for you not to travel. So he got the day off by coaches, comes back on Sunday and just picked up where he left off. And obviously it was in garbage time, but he gets that pick and he held on to it. I feel like Marlon Humphrey missed out on 2, right? Like there were 2 that were in his hands. Definitely 1, but I feel like there was a second one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he holds on to it, and Roquan Smith sums him up like this. He plays with a F it mentality, which how else can you play when you're 5'8" and like what, $160? I don't know. I don't know what his exact numbers are.
Hopefully he's a little bit more north of that
yeah.
in terms of weight.
Yeah,
having stood next to him, having done a couple features with him while in radio, I think he's 5'8", 180. That'd be my guess.
Okay.
Somewhere around there. Now the 180 might be a little generous in terms of roster constructing, but point being, he plays like he's 6'8", 280 with just a ton of heart. He doesn't play like that because you wouldn't be able to move at 280 like that. But he's got a knack for the football. You hope everything is okay. To your point with the personal matter. He ends up making it for the game. And I think this is a guy that, along with Kyle Hamilton, has just brought a lot of calm, has brought a lot of experience, a lot of communication, and streamlined everything efficiently on the back end. And you've seen it trickle down now from level 2 to level 1 up front. And I think there's a correlation between the two of those things.
You're correct. The roster says 180. I bet they are being generous. 160, yeah. I may have been a little low to prove a point. So we'll cut it down the middle and call him 170. How about that?
Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
All right.
As for another DB who has definitely drawn the ire, deservedly so, from this fan base throughout points of this season, is cornerback Brandon Stevens, who yet again had a tough day, Sarah. A couple DPIs were called on him. Maybe one of the two you really think is ticky-tack. but it didn't stop the CBS broadcast booth from having a field day. Tiki Barber, of course, former Giants running back, former NFLer Jason McCourty on this specific play. I believe this was the second defensive pass interference, and was the coverage with Neighbors, Sarah? Do you remember? Is that Neighbors there that you have screenshot?
I believe that is
on the right-hand side. Okay.
Yep.
So another DPI. It's the second one. And yet again, his ball awareness, spatial awareness, not there. And Tiki and Jason made sure to note that. Tiki was quoted for saying Tim Boyle intentionally throws this on the back shoulder because he knows that Brandon Stephens has no idea where the ball is.
Oh.
Jason McCourty, direct quote, he's panicking, referring to Stephens. It's panicking at the point of attack, which is holding him back today. If only Jason knew, that's been holding him back throughout the course of an entire season, which has been, unfortunately for Brandon, regression based on what he put on tape last year. Was one of the most successful and reliable DBs for them a year ago, Sarah. He's gone the opposite direction this year, and unfortunately, through 15 weeks, unless something changes over the next month, that's a tough season to have in the middle of a contract year.
If it weren't for Justin Tucker, I would say that Brandon Stephens is the most surprising, downfall, just free fall from last year. I don't know what happened. I don't know why he played so well last year and is completely, I don't know. He's just lost it this year. That's a conversation of why it's happening for another day. But I think the Ravens need to be at a point where they accept the fact that Brandon Stephens at this point is a liability. Listen, when you have your third or fourth string quarterback come in Tim Boyle, I keep wanting to say Nick Boyle, and he knows to pick on Brandon Stephens, and partially he's probably just going to his best receiver in Malik Neighbors. But if they know to pick on Brandon Stephens, you know that Patrick Mahomes is going to pick on him. You know that Josh Allen is going to pick on him. You know that Russell Wilson's going to pick on him. At this point, it's known. So you can do a couple of things to fix this. One, and here's my question though. One, you can put in Tre'Davious White. He left and went into the blue medical tent. I never heard of what happened to him after that. Do you know if he was back out there? Did anybody see him?
I never saw a follow-up note on that.
I assume he never came back, which is why they had Stephens there. Now, and I don't think anybody asked John Harbaugh about it. So for the most part, they seem to have gotten out of this healthy, but Tre'Davious White is a guy to watch. Or maybe he kind of, somebody's saying in the chat that he was in later. Well, if he was, that's good news. Okay, yeah, they're all saying he came back. Okay, that's good to know. Well, then keep having him come back in. Okay, because this isn't working. Or let Nate Wiggins travel. Now, again, I don't know if Brandon Stephens is capable of playing both the right and left boundary. Sometimes guys just get used to one boundary and how you turn and all that. Maybe Tre'Davious White can do it. Either way, he's the liability right now. And the Ravens have made a ton of personnel changes that you just laid out, from Trenton Simpson, Marcus Williams, and
special teams. And they have been putting on Stephens less with Tre'Davious White, but it may need to be something that's even more, because you just can't have this in big games. I do not want to see Russell Wilson, if George Pickens is back, we cannot be in a tight game, and then when it's the fourth quarter and the Steelers do their on what's the word I'm looking for? Just on time, what they do every week, like clockwork, and just be like, I'm going to take one-on-one. Wilson throws it up to Pickens, and Stephens is completely lost. Can't happen. So you either need to travel with Wiggins or put Tre'Davious White in more for Stephens, but this has become a liability at this point of the season. I see some asking for Desmond King out there. I see him more as a special teams guy. Maybe he ends up taking Tylen's job as the punt return specialist. But in terms of his coverage abilities, I think you're going to want Tre'Davious White in there in terms of that adjustment that we're sort of trying to speak into existence here. And, to your point with Nate, did you want to finish that thought?
No, go ahead, because I was going to say something about Nate, but it sounds like you are too. So go ahead. I'll do it after you.
Well, just with Wiggins, the continued fearlessness against opponent number ones is awesome to see. A great pass break up there on Malik Neighbors. It was that end zone fade attempt, and Wiggins just throws his body around. He's so slender, isn't he? He's so slender, but yet he's so, talk about a guy that plays, more so than his frame, more so than his size. Nate consistently going to run with you stride for stride. We know that, but he's also going to use his hands properly. And you saw that on that play with Neighbors.
Okay, exactly. So that was right now we had the play where Stevens got the defensive pass interference. On the next two plays, they put Malik, to the Ravens' fortune, they moved Neighbors over to the right. And twice they went at Nate Wiggins. And after the first incompletion, Neighbors is like, give it to me again. So they go after Wiggins again. So there couldn't have been a more stark contrast by those three plays happening back to back, where Stevens is lost against Neighbors, gives them the defensive pass interference and the ball, right inside the red zone. And then they go right after the rookie, and twice the rookie's like, nah, get out of here. And so if that didn't illuminate it enough, I don't know what will.
Yeah, no question. We've mentioned the penalty side of things a couple times now, and really defensively, this is what has held them back. I should say collectively as a team. If there's an area that has held this team back, it's been their lack of discipline, and today was no exception. The final numbers, 12 penalties committed for 112 yards, Sarah, negated.
Season high.
A season high, and the majority of those, at least 8 or 9 by my count, came from the defensive side of the ball. And on one specific drive, as you noted here, which was the first of 2 touchdown drives executed by the Giants on the afternoon, they were called for 4 of them. 4 of them. And to your point, they really did give an early Christmas gift to Tommy DeVito and company, letting him march down the field. Marlon Humphrey's defensive holding extends the drive. Nnamdi Madubuike on a context, I should say like a, what's the right word for it? It's, a textbook roughing the passer call. Pile drives and lands all of his weight onto DeVito. They're going to call that every time. Extends the drive. Brandon Stevens DPI, as we already mentioned, extends the drive. That's in the red zone, 1st and goal.
That one, by the way, I thought was a little more borderline. That specific one, not the one that we showed later, because he had more than one. But this one was a bit borderline. 2
is what we showed. This was the first of 2, obviously, chronologically. But and then Adafe Owe with an illegal use of hands. So those four plays, Christmas came early for New York.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it was just one, and it was interesting because even John Harbaugh said in the presser, he's like, the 2 scores that they had, he didn't say it in the terms that we did, and like gifting them, but he essentially said that.
Yeah.
And it just can't happen. And like, why against the Giants? You know what I mean? Like, if you're like in a dog fight with somebody and like you accidentally get like an illegal use of hands, like look at this with Owe. It's an easy call. It's an easy call. The vast majority of these were easy calls. Like, it's funny because I'll sometimes see people tweet like the refs, oh, here are the refs helping, so-and-so again. Nope. And it's like, okay, for maybe like 2, maybe 3 at best, you could be like, wait, that was a bad call. But when you're putting up a season high, when this is one of your biggest issues and you're doing it coming out of the bye against a lesser opponent, like, you just have to be more disciplined than that. And it's too bad because it's always different guys. Like Brandon Stevens is a guy, we keep seeing the same thing. So him, it's a liability. But with these other guys, just clean it up. Just clean it up. Marlon, it's like 1 minute it's Marlon. Next minute it's Nnamdi. Next minute it's Brandon. Next minute it's Odafe Owe. And then we could keep going on into the other drives. So it's always like, it's crazy because it's like all these guys have to play the perfect game. But that's what usually happens in the NFL. Perfect game in terms of not having a penalty. But that's what you got to do because that's what other teams are doing. Clean it up. And why that's happening coming out of the bye is really head scratching.
Tell you what, Matabike actually, I think, deserves to be in the category with Stevens. Maybe not to Stevens' extent, but Nnamdi has found himself playing some undisciplined football this year. He's been flagged 6 times. He's got 4 roughing the passers.
Ooh,
now
4. You're right.
Now maybe not all 4 of them have been textbook the way that today's definitely was, and I think we can all universally agree with that. He had 1 face mask, which was, if you can remember, I can't remember the specific game, but that was ridiculous. And then 1 encroachment. So he has what some of them have been, yes, ticky-tack, but unfortunately he's tallied them up a little bit. And get your woof ready, all right? Get your woof vocabulary ready, because entering week 15, this team, as we all know, ranked dead last in both penalties committed and penalty yards negated. Those numbers were 105 penalties and 885 yards negated. Ooh. After today, they've got 117 penalties committed and 997 yards negated as a result.
That's the worst in the NFL?
That is not going to change where they currently sat entering the weekend, which was dead last in both of those categories. I can promise you that, unless something insane happens between now and Monday night.
Oh, woof is right. Woof.
Yeah.
It's so sloppy. Come on.
That's the type of stuff that you can't even sit here, and because of what it's done in the games against elite opponents, it's hard to truly feel great about this win. Because, like you said, that's a season high. 12 for 112, you said. 12 penalties, 112 yards negated. So that's an area that if you do that against Pittsburgh on Saturday, I don't care if it's a home game or not, it's gonna be tough to win that game. You played clean today, aside from the fumble. And on the opening possession, but that's an area that's got to get short. Has to get shored up.
What's
Some super chats.
What's the update in Pennsylvania? Oh,
yeah,
Philly's up 17-10. 2 minutes left in the second quarter. Ooh.
Yeah, there's a couple updates there. That's one of them.
Okay.
And then the other is, and I believe the Bill, and I'm kind of doing 2 things at once, so Chad can help me out here if this wasn't true, but I think the Bills just missed a field goal. They're up 21-14 with 46 seconds left in the first half. So that game is in Detroit.
Indy's beating Denver right now.
Indy's beating Denver. Okay, that's Denver, of course, is right around the Ravens in the AFC playoff picture, or at least they were going into the weekend. They were both 8-5. Baltimore now improves to 9-5. Gabe writes us with a super chat and says, at this point, let's put Marcus Williams at corner. LOL. Can't get any worse.
Yes, he can. Don't do that.
21 had Jason Lockham, whatever, which I believe is Lockham Fora from the fan here in town, saying the Ravens have low IQ defensive players. Gabe also writes, I'll say it for the chat, why is 21 still starting? And we are fully caught up to speed on those. We got to talk special teams and get to a couple other notes before we close, but let's make sure we give some love to one of our biggest loyal subscribers. Wow. That's a definite miss right there. That was a...
What happened?
Let me make sure that wasn't blocked, because the Detroit kicker literally pulled this ball so badly, it went like 50 yards left, and that was not blocked.
Get together, Detroit.
Yeah. So this game, they're just trading missed field goals right now, and with 36 seconds to go in the first half, it's still 21-14 Buffalo. But Julian lost his grandmother today, so we wanted to make sure to give our guy Julian Chambers some love. Jewel, hope you and your family are hanging in there, man, and you're going to be in our prayers for sure. We know you never miss an episode, so we love you.
Sorry to hear that, Julian. Prayers, love, and like Bobby said, we love you.
So from a special teams perspective today, no field goal attempts from Justin, but he missed. He made his extra points.
Don't take away the kicks he's made, Bobby. There's enough of those.
Excuse me. He made his extra points, so that's certainly progress. I think you tweeted something along those lines. Yes, that is progress. Justice Hill, of course, like we've already mentioned, had a great return to start the game. Desmond King looks to have taken, at least for the time being, Tylan Wallace's role as punt returner. And did I have any other special teams notes that we should discuss?
I don't know. Look those.
Oh, this is a big one. Duh. We'll see if it continues. But Jordan Stout is now kicking off. and he hammered a couple of those home for Justin,
he's got
resulting in touchbacks. He's got a big foot, big boot.
Big leg. Well, this is also what okay, so interesting. So no Justin Tucker on that. And maybe like that's part of their plan to save his leg, right? A little bit for when he's kicking those field goals. The Justin Tucker extra points, and again, they're just extra points, but this is where we are right now with Justin Tucker. I remember reading, was it Feely who was talking about, somebody was talking about some of them going left because the ball wasn't spinning nose over nose, right? The way it's supposed to look. And so the only time he missed it right is because it looked like he was overcompensating for it to go left, but on that one it spinned nose over nose, and so it went where it was supposed to go, but he purposely overkicked it right, thinking it might splice left. So every one of those extra points that I can recall was straight down the middle. They were, head over head, nose over nose, what do you want to say, and looked textbook.
Yeah.
So whatever. I don't usually analyze Justin Tucker's extra points, but this is where we are.
Yeah, it is. A couple other defensive notes as well that deserve a mention. Kyle Van Noy is up to 9 sacks this season. That ties his single season career best, which was set last year in just 14 games for Baltimore. And then David Ajabo recorded his first sack since the season opener. So good to see him out there again. He got the nod over rookie Adisa Isaac at outside linebacker, which brings us to the inactives, just to mention this because it garnered a little bit of attention pregame. Keaton Mitchell, for a second consecutive week, Sarah, meaning the Philadelphia game, was inactive. That's a healthy scratch for Keaton. Marcus Williams continues to be as well. Sanusi is banged up, the special teamer, the rookie out of Purdue. Adisa Isaac, like I just mentioned, and Nick Samak. So I don't know if you have anything else to add because it really hasn't changed since the last time we addressed this after the Philadelphia game. RB3 is a special teams role. The only reason why Rasheen got some run today in the fourth quarter was because of the score and them being essentially in garbage time with their reserves. He's the rookie 5th rounder out of Marshall, and he had a little bit of pop, but again, that was really irrelevant to the game. And Keaton did mention, by the way, to reporters this week that he's getting a little bit antsy, but is saying and doing all the right things. But 12 months removed now from that serious knee injury, you hope that's not a part of the equation just for his sake from a physicality standpoint. But with Derek and Justice playing the way they are and Rasheen being sort of a more versatile special teamer, that's probably what it came down to.
Yeah, and that kind of leads into the last note that you had kind of pregame. Is it still in here?
It is.
Okay. So
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it just came from NFL Network, and I was just perusing during my pregame duties or whatever, and just wanted to follow up on something that we discussed earlier in the week, which is the decision that we think looms or maybe doesn't anymore with the suspended wide receiver Deontay Johnson. And matter of fact, I'll just play it for you right now. Which again, this was pregame from Mike Garafolo of NFL Network.
Here at MetLife Stadium, where Tommy DeVito will play today for the Giants, Deontay Johnson will not play for the Ravens, serving that 1-game suspension for a conduct detrimental to the team after the team said he refused to go into the game against the Eagles. But this is not like the Devondre Campbell situation with the 49ers from a couple of days ago. The hope is that Johnson, who is expected to return to the building on Monday, will find his way back into the good graces of this team and be a key contributing factor for them down the stretch. He only has 1 catch since they acquired him in a trade, and they're hopeful that will change down the stretch. No reason to believe at this point that he won't suit up for the team again.
Okay, so you heard Garafolo there say it's unlike the Devondre Campbell situation. Just to be clear, it's the same in the sense that they both refused to go in within a week of each other, within 10 days of each other, and were penalized because of it. Deontay was suspended. Devondre was cut. So that's the key difference in what Mike is getting at there, Sarah. And it sure looks like, as you said earlier in the week, and I kind of agreed with you, that we're going to take those that spoke with the media at their word, at face value, which was this is not a distraction. And at least his wide receiver peers that spoke, being Zay, Rashad, Lamar even spoke about it a little bit. They're sticking by him, and it looks like, at least it appears to be, that the team will follow suit with that.
Yeah, I take them at their word in that they would welcome him back.
Yeah.
Whereas, because the reactions between the two teams were very different. Like George Kittle was like, That's selfish. I don't want to play with somebody like that kind of a tone. Whereas Lamar and Zay were like, yeah, of course we want to get him involved in all that kind of stuff. So I think that Deontay benefits from having teammates that want him back, because I think if the teammates went to Eric DeCosta and John Harbaugh and said that was messed up, then I don't think they would have. I think they would have listened to their leaders in their locker room and cut him. And so, but luckily that's not the case. And maybe these guys know that Deontay is also contrite. But it's interesting, Bobby, because you have these two stories kind of side by side. You've got Keaton Mitchell, who, like Deontay, could be very upset. He said, yeah, I'm antsy, to your point. He said, I'm antsy. I want to be in there. I'm sure this is killing him. He feels like he worked hard to come back from injury. I'm sure he knows that he has something to give to this team. He knows what he did last year. He could also be upset. Who else? Devontae's Tez Walker could be like, man, I really want a chance. Now he's a rookie, and so it's different. But you have these guys that have had to be patient, and if they were upset, you would understand it. You understand. That doesn't mean that you like shoot yourself in the foot. And so I'm happy that Deontay is looking like he's going to get a second chance with this team. I'm sad for him in that I think that he took away his own opportunities in Philly, and maybe some of these catches, right? The ones that went to Nelson Aguilar had one for 26.
And a good one. A dang good one.
A good one where he hit his head. That was a stellar catch. If you're only going to have one, make it count like he made that one caught. But Tez Walker, he gets one for 21. So those could have been Deontay's opportunities. He could have had those opportunities in Philly. So I still think it's going to be hard for him to get very many catches. He's going to have to continue to follow Keaton Mitchell's lead, right? To like know that you're antsy, know that there's a reason that you can be frustrated, but just bide your time, and maybe you'll get a Walker situation. Maybe you'll get an Aguilar situation, and it keeps getting better. Like that's the only way it can get better from here. And so I think he's fortunate that he has Lamar and Zay and all those guys in his corner, and I hope it turns out well for him.
Let me just quickly clarify that Devondre Campbell note. Shanahan essentially said that he's played his last snap as a 49er, but he actually hasn't technically been cut yet. And then earlier today, Jay Glazer from Fox Sports noted that 49ers are working with the league office to pursue a max suspension for Campbell. They don't want to release him and have him join another team as a, quote, reward for his actions. So they are punishing him.
Yeah, because to be honest with you, if Campbell was like Campbell, he's an inside linebacker, right?
Yeah. And he was a good one for them too.
Yeah. I mean, that one will be pretty good for the Ravens. So
yeah, no kidding. Oh my gosh. Can you imagine that? What a turn of events that would be, because 49ers are all but eliminated at this point.
Because the Ravens could be like, yeah, we'll play you. There's nobody going to be taking over your spot. We'll play you. Literally with Chris Board and Malik being in the rotation right now and Roquan fortifying it. So anyway. So halftime scores right now are Buffalo up on Detroit 21-14, and with less than a minute left in the first half in Philly, the Eagles lead the Steelers 17-13. That's going to be the one that's key. Baltimore's 9-5. Should Philadelphia hang on and beat Pittsburgh, there'll just be one game between the Steelers and the Ravens entering the rematch, which is coming up on Saturday, and that'll be in Baltimore. So, of course, that's one that we'll be looking forward to. And then from there, it's a real quick turnaround with a Wednesday game, Christmas Day in Houston against the Texans. The Texans did beat Miami today. And I should also mention, I think I saw a note. Final play. I'm trying to remember his name, but the Texans corner intercepted the ball when Tua was going to Tyreek Hill to try to have a come from behind drive. And that was a sweet intercept. Like he just took it from Hill, just took it.
In other news, Patrick Mahomes is considered week to week with a right ankle injury. They did take care of business today. My prediction, I stuck my neck out there a little bit too far, admittedly, when you asked me on Friday.
I gave you a second chance to take it back.
I went Bobby Bold, and it came back to bite me. Chiefs take care of the Browns 21-7. And but for Kansas City, who knows? Maybe they'll depending on if Buffalo wins tonight and they have a hefty lead for that overall top seed in the AFC. Maybe they sit Mahomes because he's considered week to week.
Listen, I'm not falling for that. I've seen Mahomes within a game. He's limping because I was watching the end of that Chiefs game and he was limping. And I'm like, I'm not falling for this, Mahomes, because I've seen you within a game look like you tore your ACL. And then all of a sudden you come out and do some superhero stuff. So I'm not falling for that. I don't think he's going to be out of it.
He's a freak of nature when it comes to that.
If you're wrong with Browns, let's hope I'm wrong with Pittsburgh.
Okay. That's right. I guess you did. You picked Pittsburgh even without George Pickens, which is notable. So
yeah, see, so
Gabe says Giants fans are talking. Can't beat a CFL team.
What are they saying?
I don't know. I don't know. But I will say that all my friends that were in attendance, you could get in there for like $2 on the secondary market. And the guy that I went abroad with last week was there with his family, and he sent me a photo. And I think it's no surprise because the CBS camera crews caught this too. But Sarah, there were hundreds, if not thousands, of seats open throughout the entire game. So this is bleak times right now for the New York Football Giants. Ryan White hits us with a super chat and writes, do you think that Mitchell and Johnson, meaning Keaton and Deontay, should be used more often in rotation? These guys need reps in order to build chemistry and confidence with the offense. A lot of mouths to feed. A lot.
I would just say building the chemistry, you don't build chemistry in December.
Week 16.
That's not the time to do that. Yeah. The time to do those things was earlier. Now, with Keaton, obviously, he didn't have an opportunity to do that. Listen, do I think they should be used more in the rotation? Sure. But how much is the question? Am I taking Keaton off, who I don't know that is 100% yet, for Justice Hill, who on passing situations, probably not. Am I taking Derrick Henry out for Keaton Mitchell when I don't know where Keaton Mitchell is injury-wise? Probably not. In a perfect world where you could have all 53 men on your roster being suited, would I be like, yeah, start giving him some more snaps here and there? Sure. But I just don't know where he is health-wise. Is he like 80%? Is he 90%? And is 80 or 90% Keaton better than Henry and Justice? And so it's not really a situation that you don't want Keaton out there. It's just like, how do you do it when you don't know where he is injury-wise? And then with Deontay, again, he took away his opportunity. This is going to be tough. Philly was his opportunity when Bateman went down, and he didn't take it. This bye week was his opportunity when Todd Monken could try to put him in more and practice it more, and it wasn't there because he was suspended. So do I think that Johnson should get more looks? Sure. But like, how much has he earned so far? You almost said 0 with your hands, like 2, maybe 2 or 3, depending. And then if he does well with it, then you give him more. But do I give him? But I'm giving him Nelson Aguilar's and Devontae Walker's snaps. I'm not giving him Bateman's. I'm not giving him, unless Bateman goes down again, I'm not giving him Zay Flowers. So in a perfect world, sure. But this is not the time to build chemistry. Right now is like, who's producing? Who can we rely on? What's the formula that works? And so far, they're just not in the formula.
Antonio writes, is it time to bench Brandon Stevens? We talked about that earlier on. We both would like to see a little bit more of Tre'Davious White. He did leave the game and go into the injury tent and then return. So hopefully that's good news for him. I'm sure we'll learn more about injuries just in general during Harbaugh's Monday press conference. But until then, we won't speculate. And that brings us to the end. It's officially week 16, and it's going to be a busy one too.
Ryan didn't like my answer. He's in the chat with all caps now.
Uh-oh.
It's little by little, Ryan. He was in a tough position coming in through a trade with already a lot of mouths to feed. And again, Philly and this week would have been his opportunity. So if he wanted more attempts, he should have taken them when they were there.
All righty, let's get some patrons in here before we jump. Greg from Long Beach and Robert Bergeron, we appreciate you both for believing in what we're building and taking part in the Vault Patreon community. We love that you guys support the show. We appreciate you guys. And if you're interested in doing the same out there this football season, you can do so for as little as $1.99 by visiting the show notes or the pinned comment that we have in the live chat right now. which is patreon.com/RavensVault podcast. So appreciate you guys as always, and thanks for being with us. And for all of you that are still with us, if you haven't already done so, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you can be notified of when we're dropping our daily live content. And you and I will be back at 12 noon on Monday for hopefully a normal week.
I see you, Ryan. Much love. He says he doesn't disagree. Much love to you, Ryan. Much love.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for the super chat. Thanks to everybody.
Appreciate you guys for being with us. This is going to be a fun little stretch here, and of course, a short week. So we'll have plenty to get to. We'll have a Steelers guest coming up next week, and I'm sure just, again, we're obviously going to be watching closely here this second half. At least I am. I know you will be as well,
yes.
I'm sure, in Philadelphia.
I'm still in my church clothes, Bobby. I'm ready to change.
Nice,
I'm gonna
I
go
bet.
get into I had a whole vibe today. I had like the skirt with the blue and blue. I know it's Giants colors, but I wasn't thinking that before I left for church.
I love it.
My bad. I've got these big black boots on that come up right below the knee because it was cold out there with snow coming down. So I got to get out of this, put on my sweatpants, and go finish this Steelers Philly game. I will be tweeting. I will be tweeting.
I like it. I like the combo there, and the blue checkered there matches the top. So that's nice.
Yeah, there we go.
Well done. All right, guys. Well, hey, we'll be back with you tomorrow, 12 noon Eastern, as always, for our Monday Ravens Lunch Hour live stream. Like the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell. Join me for my late night stream, which will probably be coming up in about 2 hours or so on the Bobby Baltimore side of things. And enjoy the rest of the 425 slate. Some big games here with a lot of ramifications, particularly when it comes to deciding the AFC North. If Philadelphia can hold on, one game will separate the Ravens and Steelers, and that sets the stage for round 2 of the rivalry, which is coming up on Saturday right here in Baltimore. For Sarah Ellison, I'm Bobby Trossett signing off. We appreciate you guys, as always, for being with us, and you know it. Thanks for joining us here inside the vault. We'll catch up with you on Monday. Later.